Welcome. This video is documenting the prediction that the stock market will crash 13% in one day on July 2nd. All right? The date that this video was posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email, as we can see here. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward this to you. If by some strange reason you are skeptical, because obviously this should be enough proof that this prediction is being made ahead of time. This prediction is quite precise. We are talking about a predicted precise 13% decline in the stock market. Now, I cannot tell you which stock index it will be, but I think it will be the NASDAQ. It could be more than one index as well, but one of the three main indexes, the Dow, S&P 500, or NASDAQ, or more than one of them, will decline 13% in one day on July 2nd. And when this prediction comes to pass, it will prove the righteous Christian God of the Bible. Okay? I know far, far more than you or anyone how this prediction is known ahead of time and why. The purpose for this prediction. It is to prove that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God. Okay? And if you are, for example, of the what you might call the New Age persuasion, or if you are under the age of 40, you might not even be familiar with that term. But if you are a new spirituality, or let's just say if you do yoga, okay, let's just get to it. If you do yoga, or if you are thinking that God is the universe itself and is everything, and we are part of God, etc. In other words, whether you realize it or not, the Indian religion has replaced Christianity in the West. And so the vast majority of people, if you ask them in the West, if they believe in God, the vast majority, believe it or not, are not atheists. That's only about 13% of the population. The vast majority of people today, especially outside of America, in the West, would say, yes, I believe in God, but not like the God of the Bible. Why would they use such language? Because they're somewhat illiterate on the subject. They don't even really know what they're talking about. So they have to use this sort of primitive, simple language to try to describe what they mean, because they've never really thought about it too much. But when you ask them, they'll say, yes, but not like the God of the Bible. And if they're a little bit more literate, they'll say something like, well, like the universe is God. And also I'll give some more descriptors for what they're actually meaning. If they're even more literate, will say stuff like, well, like a collective consciousness. Okay? Like an impersonal energy. Christ consciousness is another term that these people will use. And this is the majority of people today. They have some sort of vague idea that this is the majority. Then there's others that are quite into it and will read books on the subject and practice yoga, for example. Anyway, this prediction will prove that your theology, because I know you don't call it theology, but your worldview, let's say, is 100% false. It is from Satan. There is a devil, and you are a follower of the devil. And that's the purpose of this prediction. And you can try, if you want, to mix the Hindu Indian religion with some form of monotheistic God ideas all you want, but it's still ultimately from Satan. There's no mixture. Satan's deal, what he does in general, is mix things because no one believes an outright 100% lie. And so he mixes truth with lie. So if you've got this strange concoction of like a mixture of Christian ideas with New Age ideas, I'm here to tell you that it's not good enough and you are with Satan, with your beliefs. And beliefs are important. We are what we believe. And God, Christ, is interested in your loyalty. More than interested in you performing well and not sinning and being nice to other people. He's interested in your loyalty. Whether or not you are inclined to worship false gods. That's the first commandment. The thing that God hates the most, if you know the Bible, is false religious worship. It's important. God hates false religious worship, and you are a false religious worshiper. Okay? That's for starters. Now, the other reason for this prediction, because proof for the existence of the righteous Christian God of the Bible is already out there and is overwhelming. Nothing really compares in a way to this prediction regarding that. However, there's more to the purpose for this prediction, and it is to prove the controversial things that I am saying in these videos and in this video. And there is zero debate regarding these controversial things. For many people, they aren't controversial, but for many people, they are, including on certain subjects, quote unquote Christians. Okay? But when this prediction comes to pass, that's the purpose of it, is to prove the matter. All right? Just to be clear, to not appreciate this is to not appreciate this prediction that is from God. You're missing the whole point, and you're wasting your time, actually. The point of this prediction is not for you to go, oh, cool, neat. You were able to know this ahead of time. That's pretty cool. No, that is not the purpose of this prediction. The purpose of the prediction, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction, and I know more than you why, is to prove the controversial things that I am saying in this video. I hope I'm clear. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is explain these reasons for how I know this ahead of time. Of course, because this prediction is so precise, arguably I don't need to give any reasons, and I could just simply state some things and say, hey, it's true. And that would be enough. But you'll see, as you will see, as I will explain, how I know this ahead of time are these reasons from God that are clearly from God. No human being is creative enough to concoct these reasons in their own imagination, as you will see. And on that note, back to what I was saying a second ago, how I know this prediction, well, for one, I just need to tell you how I know, and that's enough. But as you'll see, the reasons will also demonstrate this. But the way in which I know this prediction is not, if you are a New Ager or whatever you want to call it, through some sort of tapping into the collective consciousness, etc. Okay? That is not how this prediction is known ahead of time, and I know more than you. So it is natural human psychology to try to fit this information into your current worldview. And there's something in psychology called belief perseverance also, which is that when a person encounters information that is contradictory to their worldview, they block it out. Goes in one ear or out the other, or they try to reformulate it to fit into their worldview. But I'm here to tell you that that's incorrect. There's no New Age explanation for how I know this prediction ahead of time. I know far, far better than you how this prediction is known ahead of time. And it is not through tapping into the Christ consciousness or the universal consciousness, etc., of some other strange idea. It is through watching and following God's prophetic signs and relating them to the Bible and things like that, as Jesus commanded his disciples to do. Yet, if you were to ask the average Christian today if they could name one prophetic sign, they wouldn't even understand the question. And they would miss the obvious one, which would be the Star of Bethlehem in the Bible. The Star of Bethlehem being the big sign that preceded the first coming. And so we would expect, and also who recognized the sign that preceded the first coming? The wise men. The ones who were watching and knew to watch and when to watch and how to watch through the Bible, through Bible prophecy. Revelation 19:10, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. For all of those quote-unquote Christians that have ignored 1/3 of the Bible because it's prophecy, not realizing that that is the Christian tradition. It is prophecy. The disciples recognized Jesus was the Messiah through his fulfillment of prophecy. And Jesus commanded his disciples, the wise men of today who are watching his signs, to watch for the signs. The signs that we would expect that precede the second coming, like the Star of Bethlehem. Except today, there are thousands upon thousands of signs that even the vast majority of quote-unquote watchers have not recognized at all. And the very few that they do know of, they don't fully understand, because none of the prophetic signs can be properly or fully understood without their context and connections with the other prophetic signs. It's the same as the Bible. The thing that makes the Bible so amazing is its interconnectedness. It is not a linear document. One can take an infinite number of pathways through the Bible, just the same as the big picture of signs is infinite because it is all interconnected. And because of this, so much more learning is possible, which reveals all of the thousands of other signs that the other quote-unquote watchers have not recognized. Many of them are not even watching, even though they call themselves watchers. These people are focused on trying to find some sort of hidden code in the Bible to find the rapture date, when God is communicating so much more than the rapture date. And he is not, and to watch prophetic signs does not include going into the Bible and trying to find some hidden code. All right. And so let's get into these reasons through God's signs that explain how it is that it is known that the stock market will crash 13% on July 2nd. And when this happens, it will prove that God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is only being explained on this channel. Which means if you are a quote-unquote Christian, recognize that this video here is a massive bag of gold, unlike any other, and recognize the warning Jesus gave to Christians that do not do anything with their bag of gold. In other words, don't ever stop sharing the link to this video. If you do follow that advice, change it up. don't just copy paste, over and over, because the algorithm will recognize that and it'll ding you for spam. Just change it up, put a little sentence in there before the link, and don't just preach to the choir. Go to the places on the internet, including other YouTube channels, post the link in there to those that would never find such things like this. All right, so here in this video, we'll begin with the death of Clive Davis, arguably the most important music industry producer of history produced. So I explained a lot more about Clive Davis in the last video. So I'm not going to repeat it too much, but he produced everyone from like Whitney Houston to like Simon and Garfunkel to Pink Floyd and everyone in between, So it's a big deal. He died on June 22nd this year at the age of 94. 9 + 4 is 13. Also, 4 divided by 9 is 0.444. And God is pairing 4 and 13s together in general. One reason being is that 4 times 13 is 52, which is the numeric equivalent of the word ship. In simple English gematria, A = 1, B = 2, C = 3. And in the Bible, in Bible prophecy, ships symbolize America. That's another story that I've explained too many other times. It's derived from Isaiah chapter 23 and Revelation chapter 8. For those that say that America isn't in Bible prophecy, they couldn't be more wrong. And as we would expect it to be, it's very prominent. The ships are symbolic. The ships of Tarshish, the daughter of Tarshish and its ships is the daughter of the UK, and the UK is Tarshish. Ancient evidence proves this, and on and on. And Tyre symbolizes America, ancient Tyre, because it was strong because of its natural protection from the sea on all sides. And so it's symbolic of America. And this is where this Tarshish comes up in Isaiah 23. And the UK was set apart from the rest of Europe and made the world dominant empire through its naval power and its merchant ships, the ships of Tarshish, and likewise the same as with America. All right, now I don't care to explain everything, and like I said, the controversial things that I'll be explaining in this video will be proven to be true when the prediction comes to pass, okay? That's case closed. I really don't need to get into anything more regarding these things because, we don't want to make this video 5 hours long. But I'll say this, the third of the ships that are destroyed in Revelation 8 is symbolic of the destruction of America. It's all allegory, the book of Revelation. It's not literal. The ships symbolize America. So Revelation 8:9 is the destruction of America. Okay, and I'll give you one proof, just one. Revelation 8, Isaiah 23 hints at the date 8/23, which was the day of the earthquake, the strongest in I forget how many years east of the Mississippi in Washington, D.C., that did a prophetic amount of damage. I won't get into explaining it, to the National Cathedral, otherwise known as America's spiritual home, just shortly after the 50th birthday of the Antichrist, who will become the 50th president, Barack Obama. All right, anyway, so let's just move on here. So as explained, his death pointed to the date July 2nd, on which it is predicted there will be a 13% drop in the stock market, okay? Which is what I explained in the last video. And what I didn't explain is that his age actually confirms this, because 94 hints at 9 + 4 = 13. Now, Clive Davis was arguably the most important music industry producer of all time. On the day of his death was a story regarding a member of one of the biggest music groups of this century, One Direction. One Direction, the name of this group, hints at the predicted direction of the stock market on July 2nd, which is down. The member of One Direction that was in the news on the day of Davis's death was Liam Payne. Payne, the member of One Direction, died from a fall. His fall in one direction, down. It's kind of ironic. That's how he died. He fell straight down off the balcony to the ground, okay? So he went one direction, okay? He fell from the balcony of his hotel room on the 3rd floor. One Direction's 3rd album was Midnight Memories and was the best-selling album of the year 13, as listed by IFPI. I forget what that stands for. International something Phonography Institute or whatever. You know, it's one of these traditional things. So the best-selling album of the year 13, the name Midnight Memories hints at the MM letters, and M is the 13th letter of the alphabet. Okay, so that's why Liam Payne fell from the 3rd floor. It was in One Direction. It was to point to One Direction's 3rd album, Midnight Memories, which was the best-selling album in the year 13, and the letter M, the initials, give us the number 13 and 13. This hints at the predicted 13% drop in the stock market that will be in One Direction, down, on July 2nd, 10 days after the news story about Liam Payne on June 22nd. Okay? The news story about Liam Payne that broke on June 22nd regarded his estate being awarded to his son because he didn't have a will. The name of his son is Bear. And by the way, this 10 days connection from the death of Liam Payne to the predicted 13% drop in One Direction was known prior to learning the name of his son. All I knew, my friend sent me the link to the Liam Payne story, and I didn't read the link. I didn't even know what it was about. So I then, after knowing already that this pointed to 10 days later, I went and read it. As I explained in the last video, I read it during the video, actually. It was amazing because it happened in real time as I was recording. And it was learned that his son's name is Bear. And that's just like so amazing. Because this is exactly what was believed to be the case regarding the significance of the death of Liam Payne. A bearish market. Because bear, of course, if you don't know, is the symbol for a down stock market. The bulls versus bears. Bull being the symbol for optimism and the belief that the market will go up. Bears being the opposite. The market's going down. This is astounding. His son's name is Bear. And I didn't even know that, but I knew the prediction ahead of time. Or the connection. Okay, so of course, the name Bear hints at the bear market 10 days after this news story. Which again was already known, this 10 days, prior to the learning of the name Bear. Now, the estate will be given to Bear, won't be given to Bear, until he is 18. Which is amazing, because on the same day as the news of this news about the estate not being given to Bear until he's 18, Lionel Messi scored his record-setting, and God uses records for signs in general, 18th goal in a World Cup game in Argentina. For Argentina. Okay, so God uses records. Lionel Messi for Argentina scored his record-setting 18th World Cup goal on the day of the news of the estate not being given to Bear until he is 18. Liam Payne fell from a balcony of a hotel in Buenos Aires, Argentina. That's right. And the name Lionel hints at Liam. The meanings of the names, I believe, are somewhat similar in theme. Lionel means young lion. I forget precisely what Liam means, but anyway. But it's all relevant to the Bible, actually, because of the young lion in the book of Isaiah. But I explained that in the prior video, so let's move on. Liam, because it's about a ruler, and the name Liam is some kind of name for a ruler. Liam bet, and the young lion is the ruler, is what I meant. So Liam met Bear's mother, famous UK pop singer Cheryl, while on the show X Factor. Okay, this is this talent show, X Factor. That's where the two met, and then they had the son Bear. As well, the members of One Direction, the band itself, formed a group after their individual times performances on X Factor. So the group One Direction is an X Factor group. They were all formerly X Factor contestants. And then they formed a group, One Direction. That's how they became famous in the first place, because of through their time on X Factor and then forming as a group. Smart, genius business strategy, which rhymes with Clive Davis. But from what I know, Clive Davis didn't produce them. But anyway, you get the point. The letter X, okay, X Factor, the letter X is the Roman numeral that symbolizes the number 10. This confirms the count of 10 days from the news story about Payne and Cheryl's son, Bear. Because they again met on X Factor. The X Factor produced Bear. Bear is the X Factor. He's the factor, if you will, of Payne and Cheryl. Multiplication together is Bear. You know what? That's not even a joke. That's probably from God. X is the symbol for multiplication. Payne and Cheryl multiplied, and the factor was Bear, and they met on X Factor, and X symbolizes the number 10. And from this story about Bear, who was the factor of the X Factor, we get 10 days to the predicted One Direction fall in the stock market. Now, the way in which God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel, is that it works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what's being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. So the second witness to this 10 days in this X Factor, hinting at the 10 days, is this. The amount of the estate that Bear was awarded is 29 million. 29 is the 10th prime number. This is further evidence for adding 10 days to the news about the 10th prime number of millions estate. God uses records for signs, as I said. The tour in support of Midnight Memories, Where We Are tour, was the highest ever grossing tour by a vocal group in history at 290 million, which of course hints at 29, which is the 10th prime number. This is a third witness. I already explained how through Liam Payne's death, the album Midnight Memories was pointed to. It's also, again, what gives us confirmation that 10 days later will be a 13% loss, because MM. Now, Midnight Memories, again, was the best-selling album in the year 13, and MM gives us 13 and 13. 10 days later, after the news regarding the One Direction member and his son, is the predicted bearish One Direction in the stock market with a predicted loss of 13% in one day on July 2nd. Despite being released 5 weeks remaining in the year 13, Midnight Memories, which gives us 13 and 13, sold 4 million copies to become the best-selling album in the year 13, even though it was released with only 5 weeks remaining in the year. That stands out. That's a newsworthy thing. That's newsworthy enough for it to be one of the major points about the history of One Direction as recorded on Wikipedia, for example. It's a significant thing. but God designed it that way so that it would stand out. So the best-selling album of the year 13 became the best-selling album in the year 13 in only 5 weeks. Okay? But the thing here too is that it sold 4 million copies, and God has been frequently pairing this number 13 with 4 in his prophetic science. If you've been watching the recent videos, you would know this. And one reason being is, as I already mentioned, because it was mentioned up here. Well, anyway, 4 times 13 is 52, which is the numeric value of ship in simple English gematria. It is predicted that the U.S. operation to extract the nuclear dust from Iran, which, by the way, is symbolized by the number 13 in the Bible and in God's signs, will begin 13 days after the predicted 13% drop in the stock market on July 2nd, which would be July 15th, the predicted beginning of the mission. The mission will likely begin at midnight. And I say that because it would make sense that that's what's being hinted at with the name Midnight Memories, because of MM and 13 and Iran being symbolized by 13. Because in the book of Esther, the Jews were persecuted in Persia, ancient Persia, which is Iran, on the 13th days of the month. The name Iran is equal to 130 in Hebrew gematria, which hints at 13. All right, but also the number 13 symbolizes America, and we have this war because of the 13 colonies that it was founded on, and so we have this war between these two nations that are symbolized by the number 13. We have even 2 13s in the name Midnight Memories. But anyway, it does make sense that the operation would begin at midnight anyway, strategically, but it also makes sense because of the hint at midnight with the name Midnight Memories. You would figure that midnight hints at some kind of midnight at some point in the near future, and midnight doesn't really apply to the stock market. So what would it apply to? It would make sense that it applies to the predicted mission that will begin in Iran 13 days after the 13% drop on July 2nd. And that is it for this video. God bless.